So last week we were talking about the topic of courage and kind of a good flyover one sentence version would be that courage is the key to developing confidence.
Yeah, it really is.
It's the key to developing and really growing your inward and emotional health, but also, or I guess emotional strength. That's what we call it. And then for your outward behavior. Courage is kind of part of both.
Yeah, and a lot of men don't think about the fact that courage is an inward and outward thing. We always think of outward courage, charging the hill, going and killing the bad guys who kidnapped your daughter. And those are courageous things.
Right.
But it's just as courageous to look within, to look at, okay, what pains am I dealing with? Why do I do some of the things I do? What are my motivations? Those aren't wrong things because they're also part of who you are as a man. And it takes a lot of courage to face them.
Yeah, and courage is a path, not a destination.
Yeah.
It's not a personality trait. It's not something static that you're stuck with, like, oh, I guess I'm just not confident and I'm not courageous.
Yeah,
you
it's
can
true.
grow in your confidence through taking courageous action.
Yeah.
It's something that's inward and outward. And if you do it inwardly, it bolsters your ability to do it
It will
outwardly.
come on the outside, you're right.
Because emotional strength inwardly is a basis for upping your courage.
It is.
If you think of courage almost like fuel in the tank, emotional wellness means you have a bigger tank.
Yeah.
Emotional strength gives you a bigger tank to where you can put more courage in and use it to get where you're trying to go.
Yeah, and it applies to every area of your life, your relationships, your job, everything you do. When you have more courage, you'll have more confidence and you'll actually be more successful in each of those areas.
Exactly. So we're going to continue this conversation and get a little bit more in depth to the practicals of it today on the show.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast, where our goal is to help you get out of survival mode and into living a life you can be proud of. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
He's my dad, and we are continuing part 2 of a discussion on the topic of courage leading to confidence.
Yeah.
In this section right now, we're talking about how courage is the result of emotional strength. So how would you define confidence? What's a good definition of confidence that guys can use in a practical way and get their hands on to get better?
Yeah, one of the Merriam-Webster definitions I really like, it's confidence is full of conviction. And we see that in guys. You have guys who are Ford truck, Chevy truck people.
They will fight to
And
the
they
death.
will give you stats. They will give you all this stuff. And they're full of conviction. We live in the South where college football rules so many people's lives.
That's true.
And I mean, people will dress themselves up in their team colors. They'll paint their house their team colors. They do all that stuff. And what is that? That's conviction. They're full of it. And they feel like they're confident in their team. My team can beat your team. And so those things happen. And so for men, we want to live with conviction. And what that means is not that we're cocky. It means that we know who we are, we know what we're all about, and we have the courage to live that out. When you don't have confidence, a lot of times it means you lack conviction.
Yeah.
And so you're willing to be influenced by others. It's not that you're not willing to learn. It's this, that when you're not confident, you seek those things to make you feel better.
You become a bandwagon fan, if we're going to use the college example.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And so what you want to be is a person who's full of conviction, a person who has that confidence of, okay, I think this is the right way. And again, it doesn't mean you have to be cocky or ugly or mean about it, but you like what you like.
Yeah.
Like some people, when it comes to Thanksgiving, we just had that. And, some people are stuffing people. And I don't get that because in the South, we're cornbread dressing people.
Yeah, we have a conviction,
Yeah.
which gives us confidence in dressing.
Well, in sweet potato casserole, you have people who have different kinds of sweet potato casseroles.
Yeah.
Like we prefer the marshmallow sweet potato casserole. Some people
crisp.
prefer the pecan one. Pecan one's good, but I like the marshmallow one for the holidays
Because
and stuff
it's
like
better,
that.
yeah.
And, I just saw a comedian who made these top 10 commandments for Thanksgiving. And he talked about that's not the time to experiment with recipes.
No.
Do the old faithful, experiment the other 364 days out of the year.
Yep.
And I think it's a great point. But people, a lot of times you find their convictions when it comes to the holidays. We always do this. And a lot of times it just comes out of that's what they've done in the past. And they love it. They love the tradition of it. They love that. And so they have the conviction of it. So they're confident. This is how you celebrate Thanksgiving. And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think to bring it to our life convictions, if we want to live a life full of confidence, we have to have our own sense of conviction in our
Exactly.
life. And the pathway to get there is through developing our own emotional strength.
Yeah.
To use the example that we used last week, it's like using courage to take your roots deeper.
Yeah,
So
it
like a
is.
tree, if a tree is going to be very tall, it's got to have very deep roots or else anything can blow it over.
Yeah.
And a lot of people's confidence is like that.
Yeah.
It looks great. And then once anything pushes against it, boom, it's on the ground. And
Yeah.
so if you want to have well-rooted, true, genuine confidence, you have to do it through developing your own emotions.
Yeah, because you have to develop confidence that's outside of situations. Because things happen. Things happen all the time, and you can't control everything. The only thing you really can control is your reaction to them. And so when you have confidence that's born out of conviction, which gives you courage, you can face things that may be hard, that may be tough to walk through, but you can walk through them because you have that depth.
Yeah, and this is important for us to say here. The reason that we're bringing up convictions when it comes to a conversation about courage is because it takes courage to find and develop those convictions.
Yeah, it
we
does.
talked 2 weeks ago about awareness and how it takes courage to have awareness because sometimes that can hurt.
Yeah.
Well, it takes courage in its own way to develop your own convictions because you have to be willing to question.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to be willing to ask, who am I? What do I really believe?
Yeah.
And how much of what I either grew up with
Yeah.
or feel right now
Yeah.
or have just assumed to be true is true and how much of it isn't.
Yeah.
Those are tough questions to ask, which takes courage. You have to have courage to develop those true, genuine convictions.
Yeah, and a lot of men, if they don't do it, they'll never figure out who they really are. And when you don't know who you are as a man, then you're going to let all the outside influences tell you who you are. The outside influences will push you, and we've seen that throughout the years. We've seen that every generation has that pressure for guys. Like in the 50s, it was the greasers.
The leather jacket.
Yeah, they had the leather jacket, the T-shirt, the greaseback hair. Well, a lot of that came from movies where they had characters who portrayed that, and therefore it got into society. Why? Because a lot of guys didn't know who they were. They wanted to be someone different, and so they let that pressure them.
Yeah.
In the 60s, the Beatles became the influential. So when the Beatles got really into the hippie movement, what happened? A lot of the people in the country got into the hippie movement because they were letting those outside forces influence them. And then you had the ugliness of the 70s and the clothes, which I was a child in the 70s, and they were ugly then, and they're still ugly today. Bell bottoms, which never looked good on anybody.
But they came back somehow. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah,
but it did.
I don't get that. But I did like the music. Disco had really funky bass lines, and I love that. And so today I hear songs with great bass lines, and it makes me happy. But we see that influence is something, then there's nothing wrong with it. Like if you see something you like, you think, I'm going to be like that. But a lot of people are looking for that to tell them who they are. I want this outside thing to tell me who I am.
Yep.
I identify myself with the grunge movement or the goth movement. We've had all kinds of movements and influences. And every age, you see older people who will act a certain way because all the other older people act a certain way. Everybody does this, but when you don't know who you are, you're really giving yourself to that. And that's the dangerous thing for men is we start becoming caricatures and there's no real depth to us.
Yeah.
And we just kind of float along.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know why this comes to mind, but I think of bikers.
Yeah.
Like, I know a couple bikers, actually. Like, there's one that we're both friends with.
Yeah.
He loves riding motorcycles, but he's himself.
Yeah.
He's kind of a nerd, and he's just going to be a nerd with his his motorcycle.
Yeah.
But then there are the guys who are hard.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah, I'm just born to be free. Born to be wild.
Yeah, definitely.
And you see them riding together, and there's like 40 of them, and they're all like, I'm a rebel. But what's funny is they're all a rebel in the exact same way.
Yeah.
They look the same. They dress the same. They grow their hair out long, even though they're balding on top. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're just going to do it. They're going to do what they want to do because
Yeah.
that's their style. And that is really like somebody's copy pasting an image instead of doing the hard work of being like, do I actually like that?
Yeah.
What do I think is right? What do I enjoy? A lot of times it's just like that. I'm just going to copy paste that. And that's just not the path to having convictions that give you confidence.
Yeah. And we're not saying that you can't come across something that you see someone doing or something, and you're like, hey, I like that. And you may discover something you like and that you're into. You may be into bikes. You may be into sports. That's cool. You just want to make sure it's yours.
Right.
And you're not just doing it to try and appeal to a group, to try to get someone to like you or anything like that. Because then what happens is you get into this whole lifestyle, and then one day you may wake up and realize this isn't really me, but you may be so deep into it that you don't know if you can get out. Like guys who act one way, then they get married as one different person. And if they begin to change, that can cause problems in a relationship because she married you when you were like this. Well, now you're becoming like this. And that could be a problem. I'm not saying it kills the relationship. You work through it, but it's a reality you got to deal with.
Yeah. And that takes courage.
Yeah.
It takes courage to develop your convictions. It takes courage to live in a way where you're being authentic.
Yeah.
It takes courage to be authentic.
Yeah, and it takes courage to grow that emotional strength, to be willing to look within and say, okay, why am I the way I am? What was my background? How did I grow up? And again, we're not saying you're going to become emotional in this. Emotional strength is different from having emotions. Some men are more emotional than others. That's just the way it is. But every man has emotions. And what you want to do is, okay, what are these emotions? Where'd they come from? Why do I have them? When you begin to wrestle with those things, it actually makes you a stronger man because you're figuring out, this is who I am. This is what I believe. And that actually is going to influence everybody you're around in a more positive way because your authenticity will show through.
Yeah, to put it in like a tweetable quote, I would say it like this. You don't have to be emotional to have emotions.
Yeah, it's
or
true.
Another way would be saying to have emotions doesn't mean you have to be emotional. Because a lot of times when we say emotional, we mean people who are controlled by their emotions. That's not what we're telling you to do. Unfortunately, you will be controlled by your emotions if you never actually look at them and deal with them.
That's true.
It'll just be under the surface.
Yeah, and you won't even think about it. It's just the way I am when you're being controlled by your emotions the whole time.
And it takes courage to do that.
Yeah.
We don't want you to see that as you giving up control. Like, well, I guess I just got to be emotional and cry all the time now. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that it takes courage to look and say, hey, this bothers me.
Yeah.
Or if you're developing the process of convictions, I thought I was like this, but it turns out I was just copying this guy. Those things take courage. And
yeah,
good.
And when you walk through it, that's where the confidence comes in.
Precisely.
Because you know, this is what I like.
Yeah.
Like I like this. This is my thing. Well, you develop a confidence in it, which will give you that conviction. I really enjoy this. I'm going to get into it. It could be sports. It could be bikes. It could be whatever. but you've picked it yourself. You're not doing it for someone else. So your confidence in it grows a whole lot more.
Yeah. To give just a practical example, I would think of like my friend Andrew. We talked in the physical course about how seeing him really enjoy his healthiness and see it as a joy instead of a punishment caused me to be like, I want to do that too. This is something I did not do. I did not copy paste everything Andrew did.
Yeah.
He gave me a list of what he did, and I do not do all of that today because I'm not the same person as him. Like right now, he's really into rock climbing.
Yeah.
He does the rock climbing thing and he loves it. And not me. I want to play tennis, you know?
Yeah.
But what I've done is I've had to go through, and this has been a process of years, but going through and asking, what kind of exercise do I like?
Yeah.
You know, do I believe in having physical health? What does that mean for me?
Yeah.
Because it's going to look different for every person.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing on an emotional level
Yeah.
to where you're like, what matters to me and why? What is my purpose from and why? What relationships do I value and why?
Yeah.
That takes courage to go through that process because you have to reflect.
Yeah, and as you go through the process, don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things.
That's true.
That's where the courage comes in. Well, let me try this. Let me do this. Let me see what fits me. And those are all good things because as you do that, you're figuring yourself out. You're figuring out, and you're gaining that emotional strength you need, which will build your confidence, which will build your conviction, and really it'll build a much better life for you.
Yeah. So let's talk with how to get there.
Okay.
A lot of this has been ethereal. A lot of this is talking about the why, big picture.
Yeah.
The path to get there is something that we call micro courage.
Yeah.
An issue when the word courage comes up is everyone thinks it's the big thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Liam Neeson and Taken going to the other side of the world to face all the bad guys. You know, that's what courage is. It's the I forget his name, but the dude from Independence Day flying up into the alien spacecraft and say, "Tell my kids I love them," and destroying the whole thing to save the world. That's courage. Yes, but no. Courage does happen in big moments. But the truth is true, real, authentic courage comes from not one big decision, but thousands of little decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can think of it like strength in the gym.
Yeah.
You just had a big moment in the gym. You did your first exercise. Why don't you tell them about it?
Yeah,
A specific kind of exercise.
I always used to joke about, we follow a guy on Athlete Next, Jeff Cavalier, and he talks about doing weighted dips. And a dip is where you're up and you hold yourself down and back up on this bar. And I've always laughed at that. I said, I am a weighted dip. But I've gotten to the point recently where I've actually had to add weight, you know, where I've put my feet under like a barbell, like a 35-pound barbell, and hold it while I'm doing the dip and could probably go a little higher. And that was a big moment for me because I've always considered myself a weighted dip. I'm a big guy. But when I did that, I was like, I did a weighted dip. I was in the gym, so I couldn't scream and yell, but I felt like it because for me, all the other work I'd done, building my strength up, working on this, doing the work, now all of a sudden I can do weighted dips. And that's a big moment because I did all the little things.
Precisely.
I just didn't get it. It's not like I did one protein powder and boom, I have muscles. It's all the exercising I did. And it's like that in our life with our emotions and really with courage. It starts with the little daily courages you make.
Yeah, there's a misunderstanding to where on an emotional level, we think of courage as a one-time big decision, like as if you had gone up and you'd never worked out a day in your life, you've never done a dip, but you just decided, I'm going to go for it. And you just squeeze that thing out and you make it happen and you're like, yeah, like that's courage. No, it was 1,000 little decisions leading up to that moment. It was the decision to eat enough protein. It was the decision to exercise. It was the decision of losing weight. A lot of different things contributed to that big moment.
To that one moment.
Or
and
like-
it's like that in life to where you have those moments that are like, oh, this was big, this hit. Well, it's because you did a lot of the little things the boring things, the things nobody saw,
Precisely.
the micro moments that lead up to the big moments. That's why we call it micro courage. When you show courage in something small that maybe nobody even cares about, it gives you the confidence to grow and have more courage for the big things.
Exactly. Well, bring it back to last week's social anxiety example. Let's say there's a person who is socially anxious, has never hardly talked to a girl. A big thing for him is asking a girl out.
Yeah.
The issue is a lot of times people think, well, you just got to have courage.
Yeah.
Just go ask her.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
That sounds cool. The guy's probably not going to do that. There is a pathway of decisions to getting to a point where he has the confidence to make that big decision.
Yeah.
Instead of, well, we've talked about this in the past. Instead of trying to jump on top of the 3-story building from the ground, take the stairs.
Yeah.
That's what micro courage is. It's the stairway. And so like that guy may start just talking with guys he doesn't know because he feels more comfortable around guys and girls. And then eventually gets to the point to where he talks to a girl that he is very familiar with and just says hello, you know, and then works from there and then talks to a girl that he's not as familiar with and then gets to the point to where he's around the girl he likes and can ask that big question.
Yeah.
He's worked his way there.
And what he's done is he's built up that courage just like building up a muscle.
Precisely.
You know, he talked to this one person. That was a good first step. And then he talked to this person. And what we have to do is understand as men, a lot of times the little boring steps that nobody cares about, nobody thinks about, those are the most important for us.
That's so good.
Because they build up. And what happens is, like for the socially anxious guy, he got better at taking chances. He took a little chance here, and he saw, oh, the world didn't blow up.
Yeah.
People didn't reject me.
Or if they did, I'm still alive.
Yep. And he builds up his courage to where he starts getting to where I'm not defined by how other people react to me.
Precisely.
And a lot of us aren't like that. We define ourselves by what everybody thinks of us. But when you become more courageous, you are who you are no matter what people think of you. That gives you even more courage and confidence to do those things, to approach someone, to go outside of your radius, because you're not allowing that other person or thing to define you.
Yeah. Micro courage brings momentum to your life.
Yep.
It gets like a cycle going. But
Yeah,
instead of a negative cycle, it's a positive cycle. A good example of a negative cycle with the anxious person is I want to talk to him. I don't because I'm scared and I feel worse about myself.
Yeah.
And then there's another person I want to talk to. I don't because I'm scared. I feel worse about myself.
Yeah.
That's a cycle bringing you down.
Yeah.
But micro courage is saying, I'm going to talk to them. I talked to them.
Yeah.
What went well, what didn't. Cool. I want to talk to them. I go talk to them.
Yeah.
And it builds momentum up.
Yeah.
Micro courage is being willing to push the first domino.
Yeah.
There may be a domino way at the end of the room that you want to hit. But let's hit that first domino and let the dominoes fall on each other to get you to that point.
Yeah, and it helps you learn patience. It helps you learn that it's a long game. Like we always talk about, life's a journey.
On a journey, yeah.
You know, it's a journey. So don't think, okay, I have to be here right now. Like a lot of guys are losing weight. I want to be at this 6-pack ab.
Yep.
When it may take you years to even see your abs. That's okay. It's a good journey to go on, because you'll probably find yourself getting healthier and healthier to the point where it becomes more natural and not just something hard for you to do.
Yes. Living a life of micro courage helps you to get better at taking more chances, at taking more risks when it comes to your performance or when it comes to talking to people, asking yourself hard questions. We talked about that inner work. Courage helps you to do that and develop an awareness. Courage helps you to not be afraid of failure or rejection or even sometimes honesty, looking at reality.
And it'll, like we say, it'll help you in your relationships. It'll help you at work. You say, well, I want to make more money at work. I want a better job. Okay, start learning emotional strength. Start building up your courage, which will build up your confidence, and you'll see your work do better.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, you'll be better at it because you'll be better.
The journey to confidence is uphill.
Yeah,
And it happens one step at a time.
it does.
To put it another way, Micro courage moments lead to major courage moments. I know we all want to be confident to have major courage moments.
Yeah.
But it starts with micro courage decisions. It starts with the small decisions.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't start with you. If you're wanting to reflect and get better at your awareness, maybe a counseling session is too big of a step for you right now.
Yeah.
Maybe just journaling and writing 3
Yeah.
sentences is a good micro courage moment to say, okay, I feel bad. I'm going to learn. I'm going to try and lean into this instead of running away to alcohol or porn or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually look at it in the face for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Maybe that's your first micro courage moment. Get the first domino going.
Well, it's like we used the example in the last show, the junk drawer.
Yes.
It's deciding to throw one thing away from the junk drawer a day.
That's a good example.
You just, okay, I'm going to throw away one thing a day. And you start throwing away one thing a day. Well, in a week, you've thrown away 7 things. And maybe after a week, you're like, well, I could throw that away too. And you slowly find, all of a sudden, one day your junk drawer is cleaned out and organized.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Exactly.
And then you begin to apply it to everything in your life.
Exactly. You a lot of times we want to win the war in one giant thing.
Yeah.
Where it happens one small decision at a time.
Yep, it really
one
does.
small battle at a time, or even the decision to feed your troops. That's an unglamorous decision that's necessary for winning a war.
It is.
That's kind of what micro courage is. It's not glamorous. You're not going to be able to brag to your friends about it.
Yeah,
but it will get you going in the right direction.
it will. It'll move you that way.
And that's our challenge to you. Micro courage, let's start beginning to display it. Now, you're going to need to decide whether for you it'll move the needle forward more to do inward micro courage, like reflection or whatever, or outward micro courage, like putting yourself out there. A lot of that's going to depend on you. There's not like a perfect answer, but we want you to pick one small area where you need to show some courage and start.
Yeah, just start.
Something small. Take a step. Hit that first domino. That could be in your marriage, parenting, at work, with your friends. Those micro courage moments will help you begin working on areas that you may have been neglecting up to this point.
That's true.
So the goal is to start moving in the right direction. Like we talked about last week, time will magnify whatever you feed it. That's what James Clear said, and it rings true because it's just going to feed you what you give to it. So let's start giving small, courageous moments. That will get you to a place of confidence much more effectively than one big thing a year.
Yeah.
Doing thousands of little small things is going to get you there quicker. So don't try and fix everything at once. Don't start 37 things. Start with one step.
Yeah, just one.
And we believe that if you do that, you're going to be surprised at where you end up and how quickly you'll get there because you're shifting momentum. That's what courage is all about. If you want to get confident, start today with one small micro courage moment. Pick that thing, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man Podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.